I'm Brian, this is Ashley, and we just finished a really nice trip on the Laurel Fork section going down to Laurel Falls. It was a one-night, short one, but that particular trail is pretty popular in our area.
It starts up at Frog Level, goes down through Dennis Cove,
right,
and then we ended up in Hampton. And it was excellent time to do it as well, although the water was up a bit.
Just slightly, and we didn't anticipate that. And we saw a lot of through hikers. That trail intersects with other portions and other trails as well. What is the lake that's up back off that area?
Watauga Lake is behind that area.
Watauga Lake is in that region.
And then there's the Appalachian Trail that crosses off.
Right, the AT runs up that way. And there's a pond. What was it called? Not Miller Pond. It's a further hike way up and over the mountain.
Oh, Pond Mountain is part of the wilderness area there.
Pond Mountain.
And then there's you go past that and you hit the Iron Mountain portion of the Appalachian Trail too.
That's right.
And we need to do that next, by the way.
It was a pretty good run, but like Ashley said, the water level was pretty high. Generally, you're knee deep, maybe getting up close to your waist to wade some of those areas. They have assists that are cables along the trail. We crossed 5-6 times? I think it was 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, and there were at least 3 of them had the cables, but 2 of them were difficult.
Absolutely, and those cables are actually designed to be able to clip a harness, a carabiner, pull your gear across, or pull yourself across. Some of us were impatient, just wanting to get across. So,
well, and also I told you should try that, but don't dare, Brian.
Yeah, I'll tell you some of the stuff that we pulled was probably a little dangerous and not the best judgment on the planet. I hand over handed in a couple of sections, and it was all right, but.
I thought I'd probably take a swim if I did that, so I took a different route.
And as high as the water was in those areas, that's not a place you want to go swimming.
No.
You might end up in another state.
Well, besides dropping off a little ledge on the other side of those rocks would have been pretty nasty.
Absolutely, sure would. But it was a good trip. It really was a good trip. We were supposed to meet our buddy John about the halfway point, and the arrangement was to meet at the trailhead where we had to cross a section of road to get to it. We got there and there was no John. We didn't know if he fell asleep in his vehicle or what had occurred, or if he had gone on down and just tried to find us to get us a good secure campsite.
Apparently he was well camouflaged or something.
Yeah, we walked right by him, and evidently he was off on this little campsite that he had picked out for us, and that didn't work out too well, so we ended up actually hiking 3/4 of the, what was it, about 12 miles?
Yeah,
I'd have to check my
GPS.
GPS.
Not super rough, but 12 miles. Yeah.
So 3/4 of the trip before we camped. And it was good though. It was good. We met, like I said, a few people on the trail, and they were somewhere interesting to say the least. As we said, it's a pretty popular place. So a lot of day hikers will come in from the bottom end of the trail. In the Hampton side. And
even from Dennis Cove down to the falls, but when you're above on the upper portion where we did the Laurel or the Frog Level down to Dennis Cove, there wasn't much of anybody. And the trail wasn't cleared very well either.
That is true. The whole upper portion on the first day, we didn't see but maybe 2 or 3 people that we encountered up there. And the trail conditions weren't exactly ideal. There was a lot of ducking.
For packing, especially if it was just doing one thing. But,
we didn't have to take our packs off and push through any small choke points or anything, but there was a lot of undergrowth and a lot of brush, a lot of deadfall across the trail. It was you got to be in somewhat decent shape to be able to negotiate that, but we did, and it was a good run. It was a really good run. We broke in some gear that time that I'd like to talk about for just a second, if that's cool.
Yeah, I had some new, but my main thing has been broken in for many years. So I'll let you go with what new that you've been.
Well, one thing we did the Nolichucky River not long ago, and we did it and it was pretty high water. It was pushing pretty hard. And this was me and Brenda and John, and then Ashley and I did a trip just not long ago. But on that first run, I had my Tech Amphibians 3, which is a water shoe, And it's essentially a pretty good shoe. It's made by Solomon. So I lost my Tech Amphibian 3s, which I have hiked with, I have kayaked with, worn to the gym, I've worn just daily wears, and they hold out really well. Well, when I lost those, I was pretty upset about it, and actually lost just one. I just couldn't find the other mate. I think it got sucked into a strainer and under a rock. But I was off to Mountain Sports, which is my go-to store here in Bristol, Virginia, to pick up a new pair. Well, they didn't have the 3s in, but they did have the 4s. So these Tech Amphibian 4s, I did some reviews or read some reviews online about these things and didn't see great results. From what I was reading, they're designed to be worn as a sandal where you can push the bottom, the back part down, slip your foot in there, or as a standard shoe, and you've got these tension straps that can be adjusted on the side. Well, I read that this little section here has the tendency to wear if you wear it this way, which makes sense because you're putting a lot of pressure on that particular point. So I don't wear them that way. But I actually tested these out on that run we did, and I hiked a pretty good distance without even changing these out after our water sections of the trail, and they were pretty comfortable.
Other than pebbles in the bottom, that's about.
Oh, yeah. And these things will strain those things out fairly well. When he's referring to debris or pebbles that'll get down in here, they're great river shoes. The laces are made of Kevlar. But you know what? I give them a pass. They were comfortable. They're lightweight. Yeah, they're not as robust as the Tech Amphibian 3s were. It doesn't feel that way in material, but we put them through a pretty good trial on that run.
Yeah, I expect they do well for most of what we do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and you had gotten a newer pack more recently, too.
Yeah, right? I did. I hadn't had a decent backpack for a while. So I went shopping, once again, Mountain Sports. Steve Cheers down there, really good guy, very helpful, whitewater enthusiast. He actually helped me select my first touring boat for kayaking, and I've loved that Wilderness System Tsunami. It's been in most of the videos that we've put up so far. But he hooked me up with this. It's a Volt 75-liter Osprey. And I'll tell you what, I was pretty impressed. It was pretty comfortable. Sunscreen's still in there. It's light. And what's great about this particular model is one size fits all. So there's 2 different adjustments to adjust the shoulder straps on height. So if you've got a long torso, and as I'm sure there's some great videos out there on measuring from a certain point on your hip line up to the base of your neck to make sure you've got the right distance between the waist belt and the shoulder harnesses. But this allows you to adjust this actually in 2 different sections. So if I were to pull this whole insert plate out, it's just attached by Velcro, and dropped it down to this first arrow, this gives me 3 or 4 adjustments here at this height if I had a small torso. Or if I want to put this at the higher point, I can adjust it there as well. And I may have gotten that backwards. But nevertheless, how many times did I pull this off and readjust it and fiddle with it till I got it just right?
Right, and there are a couple you can kind of swap back and forth if you want to lighten the load on the hips or on the shoulders and kind of shift it throughout.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you've got load-bearing straps here. Mm-hmm. So once you get this on, if you bring these forward, it changes the center of gravity. So it changes basically where the pack will pull. If you can distribute the weight pretty evenly, whether it's putting pressure here at your shoulders or on your hips. And the trick is to find the perfect balance and symmetry between the 2 pressure points. Once you dial it in for each, it's subjective to the person. It's a really comfortable pack. It breathes well in the back.
And this kind of adjustable pack, they make some for kids too, so that they can grow into them. And you can get some that the kids can start a lot younger, and it's expensive it seems, but because they can grow with the pack up to, I think some of those will go from the smaller sizes even up to about 5'4". And so then until it, especially like my daughter, she's probably, it's going to be a while before she's over 5'4", so we're going to get many years out of that for the money. So it's well worth the adjustability too. For
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the way this was basically presented by Steve is that this can start with adolescents, etc., and then as they grow, this will grow. And one thing about Osprey is they have a really good warranty. They back their products. If they can't fix it, they'll replace it. And that's been my experience with this particular company.
Yeah. Yeah, they do great, make a great pack.
Absolutely.
I've been using, this thing has been through years. This is an early 90s Kelty pack.
Kelty's good brand.
And it's the Red Cloud 5400, and it will absolutely carry more than I need. And it's actually a very comfortable pack. It's probably a little heavier than what you're using.
A little bit.
But at the same time, as a whole, that small amount of weight, like I said, you can way overpack this pack, which is a problem. You know, it does have a detachable top.
So the brain detaches.
Yeah,
away.
exactly.
That's good. So, and this is the same thing. The brain detaches, etc. Comes with a rain fly. What we did find is these packs were, at least this pack, how's yours for water resistance? Pretty decent?
Pretty good. I mean, I would probably, if it was a downpour, I would probably pull a cover over it. But outside of that, it's generally really good as far as water resistance.
I was surprised at how resistant this particular one was. But now what I did do, as I do with a lot of my equipment, is I will buy silicone spray. So whether it's the Kelty tarp or the Show Gorilla tarp or anything that's going to be exposed to the elements, there's nothing wrong seasonally, in my opinion, of spraying that down with silicone, letting it dry. And most silicone products you buy, whether you go to Bass Pro, your camp store locally, they will say, just read the back, that they are safe for fabrics, clothing, things like that. And they do make a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of tents, although they say they're already waterproof, doing the same thing for the tent as well, all of that.
Absolutely.
Very helpful.
Well, that's just some of the gear that we took with us on this particular run. But
and I took more than I needed to, you know.
Don't we always?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pack a kayak way more than I need. And as I gain experience, I'm packing less and less and less and becoming less dependent also on having to stop and resupply in any location.
Right.
Although Hampton, a lot of through hikers with the AT, etc., Hampton's a pretty big layover area for people to resupply, etc. If they're going through the
shower off.
AT, yeah, shower. There is, glad you mentioned that little. It wasn't a bed and breakfast per se, but those little cabins and lodges we passed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that was along the trail on the road at the end trail of one point before we picked up the other.
It's where Laurel Fork comes in, the upper Laurel Fork comes in, and then there's the cabins there, and it's like 0.9, almost a mile down to Dennis Cove down the road.
That's about right.
And so
I wish we would have gotten video of that place. It was pretty quaint.
I think I got some photos. I don't know if we'll have them this time, but
okay, all right. But yeah, definitely. And those are taken advantage of quite frequently by through hikers.
Absolutely.
Because if you guys know anything about the Appalachian Trail, it's pretty extensive.
Oh, you live
pretty much.
It's Appalachian.
Yeah, I guess it would be. But that's a long hike.
For a while.
And I was watching a documentary recently on a gentleman who was on a vegan diet, believe it or not, and he was trying to set a record and to run it, and he did it in a matter. It takes months, like 6-7 months, for people to do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail, and he did it in a matter of weeks. And he basically ran the whole thing, or not in a dead sprint, but he did have support with him. I think he pulled or tore a quad during the whole. And it's a Netflix documentary. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, we've got a friend whose father, and he was rather humble, so he probably won't bring it up. And if he does in the future, we'll maybe get him to tell you about it.
Has he done a through hike?
He's done it both ways, and then a third time.
Wow.
And it was a few months at a time. You start, depending on whether you're starting north or south, you start at a different time of year.
Even though the terrain doesn't work that way, if I was going north, I'd always think I'm going uphill. Psychologically, just get me,
Right, but of course, obviously, because of how cold it is or warm it is when you start, and when you end, how cold or warm you plan it to be. So
you got to be prepared for any type of condition,
and you have to time it when you start. Otherwise,
that makes sense. That makes sense. That's one thing about this particular trail. If you just want to get out and do a day hike, you come in the Hampton side. There's signs that'll point towards the falls. The falls are amazing.
Yeah, but Laurel Falls is a super popular destination.
Oh, yeah.
So I know we're not the first person to have any video or any photos of it, but it's just the whole experience that we enjoy up there. And I think staying out there as opposed to, it's nice to go for a day, but staying out there overnight is really what it's about.
Absolutely. We had a neighbor camping probably maybe 75 yards away from us, real friendly, actually gave us some firewood. We got there kind of late in the evening. But it is a great, and that's the whole point of why we want to do these videos, is to introduce you guys to what's out here. And, we've traveled to do rivers here and there and go to different places, but we live in a nest of just awesome stuff to do.
Yeah, from my house, within 10 minutes, I can be somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I live right beside the Cherokee National Forest, and so
Yeah.
we were actually sitting at where we're recording is right on the edge of it. So yeah, 10 minutes from my house,
That's right.
I can walk right into the woods and be in the middle of it. So
Grayson Highlands, we need to do that here.
And that's the Southwest Virginia region, and that plays into our Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Appalachian area, and it's not far past Bristol. You go up towards the Damascus area, and outside past the Creeper Trail, which that's a great one to ride bikes on or to walk or whatever. But yeah, Grayson, that's some wilderness. We've been before. We need to.
Boy, that's been years since we've been up that way. But yeah, we need to do a project up there and get that on film as well. A lot of people out there probably, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do an overnight in the woods. A friend of ours that another gym member down here, she asked Brenda. She said, "So you sleep in the woods, and not in tents, but in hammocks. So you're actually at a buffet level." And she said, not me. So, there is some
one of my buddies calls it a bear taco, but
but it's not.
It's not. Well, yeah, no, it's not. As long as you're not rubbing yourself down with oils and stuff.
I'll tell you, I'm not a ground dweller. I mean, I've got that gear because there's some terrain and some places we go, there's just not a place to hang a hammock. But I'm telling you, from my opinion, a hammock hanging and that is the only way to camp. I mean, I get a good night's sleep every time.
That's because we're getting
bear
old,
taco
Ryan.
or not.
That's because we're getting old.
Well, yeah, we got that. That's it. It just depends on where we go. Now, the Current River, in the fall and early spring, it's definitely hangable. You can hammock camp pretty easily. But as you go in midsummer and late spring, you get a lot of undergrowth through there. So you're going to be contending with a lot of poison ivy. You're going to be dealing with a lot of thick bushes. Missouri is notorious for ticks and chiggers. You can't walk 8 feet on my land out there without picking up about 3 or 4 ticks. Tennessee here, it's not so bad. Oddly enough, they're
here, but I don't see them as much. Yeah, and we got covered quickly in some of the undergrowth.
Oh yeah,
when we were there. But here, and this year especially, I don't know why, but I haven't seen near the amount of tick activity, fleas or anything.
I haven't.
This year. I don't know what's going on.
It's rare. It's rare, but
it's 2020.
Yeah, pretty much. But kind of back to it, the Current River and a lot of Missouri rivers out there, there's tons of gravel bars. So it's more conducive to tent camping than it is hanging a hammock, especially in the summer months. But when we winter trip out there, whether it's the 11 Point or the Current, hopefully to do the White and the Merrimack and the James here shortly, and we'll hopefully bring you some awesome footage of that. I just prefer to hammock camp.
Well, it is comfortable.
But anyway, back to the initial point, wildlife. Bear taco or not, I've never really had a major issue. John has actually rounded a bend on one of the trails here, and he was about 15, 20 feet. I could be embellishing a little bit. I'm not exactly sure how far he was away, but it was close enough to alarm him.
I've had it within 50 before.
And he was sitting on his hind legs, just sitting there eating a mulberry bush. And they startled each other, and he said the bear probably took off faster than he did. So as long as you're smart about it, you respect it. If you do bring in food, everything we do is pretty much freeze-dried. But if you bring anything that would attract an odor, a bear canister, a bear box, something that you suspend way up in a tree would be a good idea.
And they can, suspending in the tree is great. It used to work better. A lot of the bears have gotten smart because people being so dumb and leaving things around. And so they've gotten more interested. So they found ways. If we do the Grayson, we'll talk about that a bit more because up there it's much more stringent because they've had a lot of problems with the bears.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me recently.
They've had to re-educate a lot of them, but we'll do that if we do the Grayson.
Okay. So, Laurel Falls, Laurel Fork Trail. Mm-hmm. Great run. Awesome, whether you're doing a day hike or a couple overnighters.
If you want to do extra time, start at frog level where we did.
Absolutely.
And come all the way down.
Absolutely. And pace yourself. Make sure you start early enough in the day where the light doesn't catch you because there are not very ideal places to camp on the first part of that run.
Not at all.
It's Laurel Fork for a reason. There's laurel everywhere.
I think we found maybe at the very beginning a couple spots that were near an open field. that had been cut, and that might have been okay for a tent or even hanging hammocks around the edges, but otherwise it's pretty dense. So.
Agreed. But it's a great trip. Bring a fly rod if you're into that, because the opportunities are fantastic. We ran into a few people that were.
Yeah, they do stock rainbow trout.
Oh yes, yeah, and there's actually a line that I think it was limiting on what you could fish with. I saw some sort of a cable at some point in the first part of the trail. Yeah. But as you see by the video, there's plenty of access points of that stream. It's beautiful, great place to filter your water. It's just a good trip. And yes, I would recommend if you take your kids, I would do the lower portion. Coming in and
unless you're prepared to know how to do the cable crossings with the right gear.
Yes, and once again, I don't recommend handing across dangerous water that with a very heavy pack on your back.
Yeah, next time we do those, especially if we don't know the water levels, I'm taking gloves and I'll make sure I've got my carabiner straps with me.
Yeah, we do it the right way, but I see a challenge and.
You still have a piece of metal in your hand?
No. I could have made better decisions, I think. That's all right. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right, guys. So that's about it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.